Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt tired of living the same old life, as if each day were a copy of the other? You wake up, work, sleep, and the next day it all starts again. It's as if life has lost its shine and nothing seems new anymore. But then deep down something awakens. A calm but firm voice says, "Enough." And it is at that moment that everything begins to change. Because it is precisely there, at the moment you decide not to accept less than you deserve, that true change begins. Change is not just about beautifying the outside, it's about rebuilding the inside. It's about confronting the mind that has deceived you for so long, breaking habits that bind you, rekindling the flame that the world tried to extinguish, and creating a wealth that is born from within before it shows on the outside. The problem was never a lack of knowing what to do, but rather trying to build a new life with the same mindset that created the old one. If you want to see different results, you need to transform yourself into another version of yourself. Think differently, act differently, feel differently. Today you will learn 10 Stoic lessons that are not meant to distract, but to awaken. These lessons serve to challenge your certainties, organize your thoughts, and restore the clarity you've let fall asleep. And if you feel this is the turning point, write to yourself, "Today my change begins." Because when consciousness awakens, it no longer accepts living a life that seems right to others but is empty for you. Before we begin, I only ask 2 simple things. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. That way this message also reaches those who need to wake up and take action. Now let's get to the lessons. 1. Living on autopilot means existing without being present. You're at work, but your mind is elsewhere. You're at home, but still stuck in the past. Your body rests, but your mind carries the anxiety of what you haven't yet done. Always rushing, always far from yourself. Lucan, a Stoic with the soul of a poet, wrote that hope for the future and memories of the past are the greatest thieves of the present. And the most dangerous thing is that they steal slowly, silently, while you think you are living. But the past is just an old photograph that has already lost its colors, and the future is a mist that has not yet taken shape. Only the now is true. Only the now has power. Only the now can be lived. You can have love, health, and freedom, but without presence all of that loses its flavor. It is attention that gives soul to what you experience. It is what transforms a simple moment into something the heart keeps forever. The present doesn't shout. It only waits. It waits for you to stop. Take a deep breath. Look calmly. Truly feel. Listen without haste and see without distraction. Stoicism never spoke of escaping life, but of immersing oneself in it completely. It is about being complete where life happens. Without virtue, there is no presence. Without presence, there is no clarity. And without clarity, chaos repeats itself. Think about it. The conversation you overheard, the time spent with a loved one while your mind wandered, the Saturday that should have been for rest, but where you were already thinking about Monday. Those moments are gone, and you weren't fully present in them. And everything that isn't truly lived is lost. A distracted mind becomes a battlefield, anxious about what hasn't yet arrived and wounded by what has already passed. She loses the ability to be grateful, to rest, to simply exist. Imagine your life as a flame. When you are present, it shines brightly. But when you are absent, it slowly fades. To be present is to feel the warmth of life in the little things, in the gaze that truly sees, in the touch that has intention, in the silence that welcomes. The Stoic lives like this, not attached to what has already been, nor carried away by what is yet to come, but with feet firmly planted in the present moment, acting with clarity, listening with sincerity, and living fully. If you feel you are losing yourself, stop. Close your eyes, breathe, and feel your body, the air, the sounds, and life happening here, now. Because everything passes, but what is lived with presence transforms into eternity within you. Write as a reminder, "Today I choose to be whole." This phrase is more than a gesture, it's a commitment to return. It's the moment you stop living on autopilot and start living with soul, with presence, with truth. 2. Silence fosters calm. Have you ever felt that urge to explain yourself, to justify everything, to respond to every criticism, to show that you're right? It seems that staying silent is the same as losing, but the truth is the opposite. When silence comes from conscience, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of control. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's teacher, said, "The word should be like a sword sheathed, sharp but under control." The problem is that most people walk around with a sword in hand, ready to attack, to win arguments that aren't worth the peace lost in them. Many people want to be right, even if it costs them their own harmony. But Stoicism shows another way of living. Not everything that affects you deserves a response. Not every provocation needs a stage. Not every criticism deserves an echo. Imagine a scene. In a conversation with friends, someone provokes you rudely, criticizes you just to irritate you. Your mind wants to retort. Your ego wants revenge. But when you respond, what do you gain? You lose energy, you waste time, and you distance yourself from the person you want to be. Speaking is impulse. Remaining silent is a decision, a subtle force like bamboo that bends in the wind without breaking. It doesn't do this because it's weak, but because it understands that resisting everything is not wisdom, it's stubbornness. True silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. It is the moment when the ego stops and the soul observes. When you don't respond out of pride, fear, or insecurity, you show that those who are at peace don't need to prove anything. And there is more power in that than you imagine, because silence also speaks. When you don't retaliate, the other person sees their own poison. When you don't play the game loses its meaning. When you don't shout, your maturity speaks for you. But remember, silence isn't about being quiet out of fear. It's about using wisdom. It's about telling yourself, I can respond, but I won't trade my peace for something that doesn't help me grow. The true Stoic doesn't react. He observes, understands, and then decides. And sometimes the strongest choice is to remain silent, not for lack of words, but because he already knows what is truly worth protecting. Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Silence is something that grows within us like a tree. It needs roots. And the more roots you create, the less the wind knocks you down." So, the next time someone tries to throw you off balance, don't react immediately. Breathe and feel the strength of not needing to win anything, because whoever masters themselves has already conquered the essential. 3. Respect the body that carries your history. Have you truly thanked the body that supported you through all the difficult days? The chest that endured the pain without collapsing? The legs that kept walking when everything inside you wanted to stop? The eyes that sought hope even through tears? We live in a time that values performance, but despises rest. That demands results but ignores the silent signs of fatigue. We treat the body like a machine that cannot fail. But it is not a machine, it is a temple. And temples don't function with demands, they function with respect. Cleanthes, a disciple of Zeno, taught that true discipline is not fighting against the body, but making a peace agreement between it and the mind. There is no strong mind in a tired body, nor a firm body that can withstand a broken mind. But today we see the opposite: shattered souls within bodies that go on autopilot, and exhausted bodies trying to support minds that have been crying out for help for a long time. And when there is this separation between body and mind, a kind of invisible suffering is born, one that no one notices but that corrodes from within. Think about the signs you've been ignoring: the pain that doesn't go away, the constant fatigue, the tension that visits you every day. None of this happens by chance. Your body isn't fighting against you, it's trying to protect you. The symptoms aren't enemies, they're alarms crying for help. You demand focus, clarity, and presence, but you offer your body leftover energy, poor sleep, rushed meals, and endless demands. Then, when it stops, you call it weakness. But perhaps it's not weakness, perhaps it's just the result of so much accumulated neglect. Stoicism doesn't separate the body from the soul. It understands that taking care of oneself isn't vanity. It's a way to stay alive and whole, because no sword is strong if there isn't a firm arm to hold it. And here's a question almost no one asks: is your body your friend or your prisoner? Do you exercise to gain strength or to escape what you feel inside? Do you eat to nourish yourself or to punish yourself? Do you rest out of respect or only when you can't take it anymore? Almost always, the excesses of the body hide the pains of the soul. But when the body is treated with respect, it changes. It ceases to be a burden and becomes strength. It ceases to be just a tool and becomes an ally, a refuge. Today, take a break and honestly ask yourself, what inside me needs to stop? What inside me wants to start again? Perhaps what you need is simply to stretch, sleep without guilt, eat calmly, breathe mindfully. Choose a simple action that shows respect for the body that carries you every day, and decide to take care of yourself completely, body, mind, and soul, without separating one from the other. 4. When giving in becomes weakness. There are people who constantly say yes to please others, to avoid arguments, to be accepted. Then they wonder, why am I so tired? Why do I feel used and invisible? The answer is simple, but difficult to face. Those who don't set boundaries become an open field, and the world has no brakes. It enters, occupies, demands, until nothing is left of you in your own life. You do favors you didn't want to do, pretend to be okay when you're broken, endure exhausting conversations just to avoid seeming rude. You swallow words, desires, and anger, but while trying to avoid fights on the outside, you create a war within yourself between what you feel and what you allow. Confucius said, "If you don't respect yourself, no one will learn to respect you." This idea is both a warning and a mirror. It's not about being harsh, it's about being true to yourself. You don't need to become a stone, but you need to stop letting yourself be trampled on. Saying no calmly is wisdom, not selfishness. It's understanding that your energy is valuable and cannot be wasted. Saying, "I'm not always available, I don't accept being emotionally invaded," is taking care of yourself. The no you avoid outwardly becomes resentment inwardly, and the yes said with hidden anger and a heavy heart is what hurts the most. So start small. Choose a simple situation, a message, a request, a disguised demand, and practice setting boundaries. Because the respect you expect begins with what you give yourself. Say no respectfully but firmly, and notice what happens inside you. See how your body reacts, how your energy changes. This is the first step to rebuilding yourself. Now take a piece of paper and write by hand. Not here, but for real. Stick it wherever you want, on the mirror, on the door, in your wallet. Write as if you were making a deal with yourself. My space has value. My time has a price. I am the protector of all of this. Because when someone learns to take care of their own territory, they never again feel lost within their own life. 5. A weak mind destroys everything. Sometimes it feels like there's a struggle inside you. One part wants to stay calm, the other wants to explode. One wants to run, the other knows it needs to stay. This internal war isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of awareness. It's your lucid side trying to take control before chaos takes over. Plato said, "The greatest victory is conquering oneself." Because conquering the world is easy for those who have never tried to control their own anger, anxiety, or the urge to give up. Think of something real. You receive unfair criticism at work and immediately your mind races. They're attacking me. They don't see how hard I work. Nobody recognizes what I do. And before you know it, emotion has already taken control. You react without thinking and the damage happens inside and out. But the truth is, what really hurts isn't what was said, but how you interpreted it. It's what that phrase awakened within you. No word enters from the outside and wounds the heart on its own. It only causes pain because it found a wound that already existed inside. It is at this point that Stoicism appears, not to leave you cold or indifferent, but to give you clarity about what you feel. It shows you that controlling a storm isn't about pretending the wind doesn't exist, but about learning to steer the boat firmly without getting hurt. Anger shouts loudly, haste pushes, fear speaks softly, but you decide the course of action. Every time you choose to breathe before responding, every time you pause before reacting, you are strengthening an invisible muscle called self-control. Imagine your mind as a large table full of buttons. When something irritates you, they start flashing. Explode, run away, attack, all red, calling your attention. But in the middle of them, there is an almost forgotten silent button with a single word. Observe. This is the one the Stoic learns to press. He understands a profound truth. It's not the first thought that shows who you are, but the second. It's what appears when the dust settles and reason takes over again. Seneca said, "The greater the self-control, the less the power of chaos, and chaos will come. The criticism, the difficult days, the disappointments, none of that will stop. But the question is, will you continue to be carried away by the tide, or will you learn to row? Mastering yourself is like training a wild animal. At first it resists, screams, fights, but with time and patience it learns. Your mind also learns. It learns that it is no longer in control. It learns that now it is not impulse that decides, but conscience. Write in the comments, "Today I choose to row, not react." Let this phrase be your new guidebook, because the storms will continue to come. But from now on, you are the one holding the helm. 6. Your inner turmoil is what's holding you back. How many times have you tried to fix the world around you, when in reality what needed order was your own inner self? You change places, change jobs, start new habits, but if your mind remains disorganized, the chaos only changes address. The same pattern repeats itself because the real problem was never outside. Epictetus said that it's not the things that happen that hurt us, but what we think about them. In other words, it's not life that weighs you down, it's how you perceive it. Your mind works like a projector. It shows the world what you carry inside. She doesn't show the world as it really is, but rather as you are inside. When there's confusion within you, everything seems like a threat. When there's fear, any word hurts you. When there's neediness, the other person's silence sounds like rejection. You think you're reacting to what's happening, but in reality, you're responding to the story you've created in your head. Now do this Stoic exercise. Think of something real, someone who ignored you, a mistake you made, a flaw that still bothers you, and ask yourself, was it really that serious? Or was it my mind that exaggerated everything? Nietzsche wrote, "There are no facts, only interpretations." This is unsettling, but it also liberates, because if the pain stems from the way you see things, healing begins when you change your perspective. Don't live with your eyes clouded by old pains. Don't act like someone walking in the dark, forgetting they have a flashlight in their pocket. That flashlight has a name, conscience. It lights up with simple actions, with sincere questions like, am I seeing clearly or with fear? Or, does this reaction bring me closer to or further away from who I want to be? Every time you choose to act calmly instead of impulsively, you unlock a lock within yourself. And when you repeat this every day, something special happens. The key begins to turn. That's the moment you stop waiting for the world to change and decide to transform the world that exists within you. 7. Not all company brings peace. Some people simply drain your energy. Have you ever left a conversation feeling empty, even without having said almost anything? Have you ever been close to someone and, instead of feeling noticed, felt like you were disappearing inside? As if a part of you had been left behind without you realizing it? This isn't being fussy. It's your body trying to protect your soul. It's your energy warning you that something is wrong. Not all presence is company. Some invade instead of welcoming. Plotinus said that you can't clean the water if the source remains dirty. This is one of the truths most forgotten by those who try to heal themselves, but remain surrounded by people who make them sick. You can meditate, go to therapy, seek clarity, but if you continue to open your heart to those who empty you, all your effort will be like trying to fill a bucket full of holes. Try a Stoic exercise now. Think about a relationship that seems to ask for more than it gives. You text, you listen to the other person, but when you need to be heard, you're cut off. When you show your pain, they make jokes. When you're silent, they criticize you, and you go home whole on the outside, but with your soul in pieces. This kind of burnout doesn't shout, it whispers. It hides in hurtful jokes, in poisonous advice, in silences that make you doubt who you are. And the saddest part? You get used to it. You dim your own light to fit into the darkness of others, until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the face you see. Stoicism doesn't tell you to live alone, but it teaches something that cannot be negotiated. Virtue needs air, and you can't grow in places that suffocate you. You don't need to break up in anger, but you do need to close the door firmly. Self-love begins the moment you decide to stop bleeding for those who don't even realize they're hurting you. Plotinus repeats like an echo. As long as the source is contaminated, there's no point in trying to purify the water. And the source, in this case, is the voices you've allowed to dwell inside your head. Voices that judge, that drain, that silence you to maintain a peace that never existed. Your soul is like a sacred home. Not every visitor deserves to have the key to your heart. Some enter and make a mess. Others break what is most beautiful to you. And some leave taking your strength, your joy, your essence. Protecting yourself is not being selfish, it's being conscious. You can say no politely, leave without guilt, and nurture your light without apologizing for shining too brightly. Because its light is not up for debate, it wasn't made to shrink within small relationships. It was born to illuminate, not to beg for space. 8. Every thought takes root within the soul. Have you ever noticed how certain ideas return like ghosts? Sometimes it's a cruel phrase someone said a long time ago, a memory that should have healed by now, or a fear that never happened but insists on returning as if it were true. These thoughts are like unwanted visitors. They knock on the door of your mind, and if you let them in, they not only stay, they change everything inside, rearrange the furniture, and take over the best places of your peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes what it contemplates." This means that what you look at and think about for a long time ends up shaping who you are. If you constantly criticize yourself, you start fighting against yourself. If you feed the fear, even simple things seem difficult. If you think too much about mistakes, you relive the guilt. If you focus on what you lack, you forget what you have. You call this reflecting, but in reality you are feeding the wound with guilt, fear, and doubt. And everything that is fed grows. Try a Stoic exercise now. Observe a negative thought that has returned today. Ask yourself, is it real? Is it helpful? Does it make you stronger or weaker? Thoughts are not neutral. They are seeds, and the attention you give them is like water that makes them grow. What happens next? You start to doubt yourself, to see the world with fear, to imagine defeats even before acting. And the worst part is that you don't even realize you're feeding your own enemy. Stoicism doesn't ask you to run away from dark thoughts, but to choose which ones should stay. Which ones do you let grow? Which ones do you uproot? Think of your mind as a greenhouse. Everything you allow inside has a chance to flourish. If you plant comparison, you will reap frustration. But if you plant courage, even with fear, you will reap overcoming. Watching your mind is an act of self-love. It's looking at a destructive thought and saying, "You won't live here." And when that voice whispers, "You're not capable," answer, "I'm still learning." When that thought comes saying, "I always make mistakes," respond firmly, "I am learning, I am growing." These words are not memorized phrases. They are bridges between who you once were and who you can still become. Seneca said that you can't control everything you think, but you need to stop feeding what weakens you. This is the beginning of a new era where your mind ceases to be a battlefield and becomes fertile ground, ready for a lighter, clearer, and truer life. But there's something important to understand. If you've been trying for a long time to step out of your comfort zone and learn more, but haven't been able to, there might be something you're not aware of. I know what it might be: anxiety. Anxiety is like a snake that creeps up silently and affects you without you even realizing it. It leaves you feeling unwell for days, months, and even years. Living like this is like being sick all the time. But I know a solution. Stoic philosophers, along with modern psychology, have a way to help you get rid of it. I managed to cure myself of this anxiety. I made a video explaining how you can get rid of this problem, and it's in the first comment. Click the link in the first comment and start healing yourself from this feeling of anxiety. 9. Stop carrying burdens that don't belong to you. Have you ever felt hurt by a silly phrase, by a casual comment, by a sideways glance, or a silence that seemed like contempt? It's strange how small words can hurt so much. But what hurts isn't the force of the offense, it's the point where it hits, the place inside you that hasn't yet healed. Seneca said, "Offense has no existence of its own. It only hurts if you allow it." Imagine someone writes something cruel, puts it in an envelope and sends it to you. When that letter arrives, you have two choices: open it and let the contents steal your peace, or return it unread, unaccepted, unkept. Most people open it, read it, think about it for days, weeks, even years, as if that phrase defined who they are. But it doesn't. An offense is like a contract. It only takes effect if you sign it. Try a small Stoic exercise now. Remember a recent moment, perhaps at a family lunch, when someone made that ironic comment about your choices. Are you still in that phase? With that tone of someone judging without knowing anything about your life? The comment was quick, but it kept echoing. You fell silent, lost your enthusiasm, and walked away carrying that thought as if it were true. But what if you looked at it differently and said to yourself, that says more about him than about me? Because whoever criticizes, attacks, or tries to diminish the other is, in fact, showing their own imbalance. The other person isn't describing you. They're projecting what's inside, and you don't need to respond, you don't need to absorb it, and much less do you need to carry it. Virginia Woolf wrote, "You cannot find peace by running away from life." And this also applies to offenses. You don't find peace by trying to prevent criticism. You find peace when you choose what truly deserves your attention. Your dignity is not negotiable. Your mind is not a dumping ground for other people's emotional garbage. And your peace is worth more than any provocation. But to protect that, you need a special kind of strength. The strength not to react impulsively, to take a deep breath and move on lightly, to let go without anger of what was never yours. So the next time someone tries to hurt you, don't just ask why it hurt. Ask clearly, is this pain really mine, or is it just a reaction to an old wound? You don't need to become as cold as a stone, but you can learn not to carry any more of them. Write in the comments, "Today I return what was never mine," because true freedom begins when you release the weight that the other person tried to put on you and choose to walk light, whole, and at peace. 10. Protecting your energy is more important than pleasing people. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work, or the rush, or lack of time. It's an exhaustion that comes from the soul. A silent weight that appears when you try to be everything to everyone, when you bend over backwards to avoid displeasing others, when you hide to avoid bothering them. It's the exhaustion of living to maintain the peace of others while destroying your own. And the truth is simple but hard to accept. Nobody will take care of your energy for you. If you don't protect what you feel, the world will consume it all. Trying to please someone is an invisible prison. It looks like kindness, it looks like gentleness, it looks like empathy. But often it's fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being judged, fear of losing the other person's love. You say yes when you want to say no. You accept invitations that don't suit you. You stay in conversations that drain you. You offer your presence when you are completely empty inside, and in the end, when you close your eyes, you don't feel pride, you feel exhaustion. Seneca said that no one can take your peace away unless you give it up first. And the most dangerous thing is that when you give too much to the world gets used to it, not because people are bad, but because they follow the rhythm you allow. Whoever never says enough, sooner or later gets lost. And when you get lost, everything around you falls apart. Protecting your energy means understanding that your time is sacred, that your mind is a temple, that your heart is not a public square for just anyone to enter and make a home. It's about knowing how to filtering discourses, filtering environments, filtering relationships, because not everything that arrives deserves to stay. Not every presence is company, not every conversation is an exchange. Some only drain, consume, and wear down. Now think of someone with whom you always feel lighter, someone with whom conversation flows, laughter comes naturally, silence doesn't weigh you down. This person doesn't invade, doesn't demand, doesn't take away, they add. Now think of someone who does the exact opposite. You listen, you welcome, you give, but when they leave you feel like you've lost something in yourself. This difference is the key to your protection. Protecting your energy means knowing where you step, who you sit with, who you listen to, and who you let in. It's understanding that life is too short to spend time with people who diminish you, who dim your light, who treat your commitment as an obligation. It's not about withdrawing from the world, it's about stopping abandoning yourself. Marcus Aurelius said that a strong man is one who knows how to turn inward and regain his own center. And regaining your center means choosing what deserves your attention, because attention is the currency of the soul. Wherever it goes, you go with it. If you spend your attention on petty conflicts, on other people's dramas, on empty conversations, you empty yourself along with it. But when you choose silence, nature, good reading, good friends, people who speak truthfully, you expand. Protecting your energy also means learning to say no. A no said calmly is an act of self-love. A clearly set boundary is a hug for yourself. You don't need to justify your refusal to anyone. You are not denying the other person. You are affirming yourself. Those who spend their time trying to please others lose their own face. Those who spend their time trying to fit in shrink. Those who spend their time trying to be accepted abandon themselves. But when you decide to protect yourself, something changes. Your posture changes. Your voice changes. Your breathing changes. You return to inhabiting your own life. Protecting your energy is like coming home, inside, to the center, for you. Write it to yourself as a silent promise. My space is sacred. My time is valuable. My energy has value. Because when you respect yourself, the world learns to respect you too. 11. Discipline is born from small silent agreements. Discipline is not a grand war waged against the world. It's not about waking up one day filled with courage and transforming everything at once. Discipline is an intimate, slow, almost invisible construction made of silent pacts with oneself. Pacts so simple that no one notices them, but so profound that they can completely change the course of your life. Many people make the mistake of believing that discipline is explosive force, that you need to feel motivation, energy, inspiration. But motivation is unstable. It rises and falls like the sea. Some mornings it moves you, other mornings it abandons you without explanation. Relying on it is living at the mercy of chance. Discipline, however, is different. It is calm, constant, firm. It doesn't ask if you feel like it. It simply says, "That's what I do." And this doing starts small. It begins when you make your bed even without wanting to. When you read 2 pages even when you're tired. When you exercise for 5 minutes, even when your body is asking for rest. When you prefer silence to the impulse to get distracted. When you choose to keep your promises, even if no one sees. These micro-gestures build the identity of someone reliable, firm, and grounded in themselves. Because discipline isn't just about doing, it's about who you are becoming while you do. You can complete a task out of obligation and remain stuck in your old self-image. But when you accomplish something out of respect for his own word, something internal is strengthened. It's as if, with each small pact fulfilled, you were saying to yourself, "I can trust myself." That's the key to real change. Most people feel weak not because they are incapable, but because they have broken so many promises to themselves that they no longer believe in their own word. And when a word loses its value, identity is lost along with it. So, start small. Start with the bare minimum. Choose one gesture that represents who you want to be, a simple, concrete, and repeatable gesture. Don't try to change your entire life. Change a single habit with love and patience, and protect this habit as if it were a flame burning in the palm of your hand. At first it is fragile, any wind can extinguish it, but as you protect it, it grows. And when it grows, it illuminates everything. The Stoics never advocated blind effort or senseless sacrifice. They taught constancy, the art of staying on the path even when it doesn't seem grand. Marcus Aurelius wrote every day, not because he needed to produce something brilliant, but because that steadfast act kept him self-aware. The small daily pact was what sustained the emperor from within. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to honor your own small agreements. Today, do the following. Choose a simple task that you can perform in less than 2 minutes. Do it now, and repeat tomorrow, and then, and then. This is how strong minds are built, not with explosions, but with repetition. Discipline flourishes when you understand that the extraordinary is born from the ordinary, done with presence. When you choose to be faithful to your micro-commitments, life begins to reorganize itself around that faithfulness. You stop being someone who tries and become someone who fulfills. And at that point, discipline ceases to be something you practice and becomes something you are. Write it down as an internal reminder, without announcing it to the world, without making a fuss. I honor what I say to myself, That's the deal. Simple, silent, transformer. 12. What you avoid becomes what controls you. There are things in your life that you know you need to face, but you keep putting them off. You avoid looking, you avoid thinking, you avoid feeling. You call it leaving it for tomorrow. But in reality, you're letting a monster grow in the shadows. Because everything you avoid doesn't disappear, it silently grows stronger. Fear doesn't weaken when ignored. It takes root. Seneca said that suffering is always greater in the imagination than in reality. It's curious how our minds can transform a simple task into a mountain, a direct conversation into an impossible conflict, a small decision into an abyss that never ends. And the most ironic thing is that when we finally look at what we were avoiding, we realize that the weight was less in the thing itself and more in the story we told ourselves about it. Avoidance is a pact with stagnation. By running away, you surrender your power to that which you fear. See how this happens in everyday life. You avoid looking at your finances, and money starts to control your life. Avoid a difficult conversation, and the relationship will become irreparably poisoned. Avoid facing your own fatigue, and your body starts to demand payment with interest. Avoid admitting what you feel, and the feeling turns into torment. Avoid taking action, and the opportunity will pass. And the more you avoid it, the more impossible it seems to face. Because the problem isn't that big, it's you who weakens every time you run away. Imagine a closed door. Behind it, you believe there's something enormous, ugly, destructive. But the door is always there, accompanying you. You feel its presence every day. And the longer you go without opening it, the more your mind invents stories about what might be behind it. And these stories become chains, shackles, prisons. But here is the truth that sets you free. The key has always been in your hand, and opening the door is just one act, small, direct, intentional. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is facing fear head-on and saying, "I'm going anyway." The Stoics knew that suffering thrives in darkness. Therefore, they taught the practice of observation. Notice what you have been avoiding. Name it, illuminate it, bring it into the light. When you bring something into consciousness, it loses power. Because what is looked at does not dominate, it is understood. Try this simple and straightforward exercise now. Think about something you've been putting off for the past few weeks. Don't rationalize it. Don't justify it. Just watch. A decision that requires courage. A conversation that demands truth. A habit that needs to be abandoned. A pain that calls for comfort. Feel the weight of this thing. Now ask yourself, what hurts more, taking action or continuing to run away? Most of the time, the pain of fleeing is greater than the pain of acting. Because running away is exhausting. Running away breaks the trust you have in yourself. Running away weakens the spirit. Confrontation, on the contrary, strengthens. Not for the victory itself, but for the act of choosing to remain present. When you do what you've been avoiding, something inside you rearranges itself. You grow a little. You respect yourself more. You feel like you can trust yourself again. And that feeling is one of the most profound forms of freedom that exist. So today, choose one thing you've been avoiding, just one, and do something small towards her. You don't need to solve everything. You just need to start. Send the message. Organize the space. Admit how you feel. Say what needs to be said. Take the first step. Power does not lie in the size of the action. It is in the act of stop running away. Write to yourself as a silent commitment. Today I face it. Today I reclaim my power. Because whatever you face, you overcome. And whatever you run away from governs you. 13. Courage does not eliminate fear. It walks with it. Many people believe that to act with strength, you need to wait for fear to disappear. As if one day insecurity would vanish, the voice of doubt would be silenced and the heart would be completely at peace. But that day doesn't exist. Fear is neither a mistake nor an enemy. It's simply a sign that you're getting closer to something that matters. And everything that matters touches the heart. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward despite it. It's like walking even with your heart racing. It's about speaking even with a trembling voice. It's about moving forward even when the path seems uncertain. Marcus Aurelius said that fear arises when the mind projects a future that does not yet exist. It is not in the present moment. It is in the image you create of what could go wrong. Therefore, fear is not a warning of real danger. It is an invitation to breathe, observe, and choose consciously. It is not about running away. It is about perceiving. Have you ever noticed how fear always appears when you're about to grow up? It doesn't show up in small things, nor in choices that don't change anything. He appears precisely at the points that define the course of your life. When you think about talking to someone important, when you decide to change careers, when you think about telling the truth, when you feel you deserve more. It's like a door. Fear is the gateway to the next level. What separates those who transform from those who stagnate is not strength, but the choice to walk through that door, even while trembling. The problem is that many people wait until they feel brave to act. But courage doesn't come before action. She is born during. It is through movement that it grows. Try to remember a time when you overcame something that seemed impossible at first. Maybe a presentation that made you tremble, a difficult conversation you postponed, a decision that seemed too big. At the time, the fear was there, but when you took the first step, something inside you changed. The fear didn't disappear, but it became smaller, and you became bigger. That's the secret. Fear doesn't diminish you so that you can grow. You grow up and the fear loses the size it once had. Stoicism does not teach you to suppress emotions. He teaches not to kneel before them. Maturity comes when you stop expecting life to be easy and start becoming strong enough to get through it. Take a deep breath and observe the fear without identifying with it. Don't say, "I'm scared." Say, "There is fear in me now." This changes everything. When you say, "I'm scared," you transform that emotion into an identity. When he says, "There is fear in me," he transforms the emotion into something that can be observed. And everything that can be observed can be guided. Courage is a pact between you and your future. It's the decision not to betray the person you know you can become. It's not about shouting. It's not about showing off your strength. It's not about pretending that nothing hurts. It's walking with a vulnerable heart, knowing that you still choose to keep going. Courage is saying to yourself, "I can feel fear. I may not know what will happen, but I'm not going to stop." Life doesn't demand that you be fearless. It only demands that you take the next step. So when fear comes, don't expect it to go away. Take him by the hand and lead him along. Because it is precisely when fear walks beside you that you discover the strength that has always existed within you. Write as a silent commitment, "I move forward even when I'm afraid," because fear is only the beginning of the story. Courage is what decides the ending. 14. Stop waiting for permission to live. How many times have you stopped yourself from doing something you believed in just because you were afraid of what others would think? How many times have you hidden your opinion to fit in, or stopped being yourself to avoid causing discomfort? Every time you do this, when you change your gestures, words, or decisions, you distance yourself a little further from yourself. This prison is invisible, but it's real. It stems from the need to be approved. Chiron of Sparta, a little remembered but very wise Stoic, asked a question that cuts deep. How much longer will you postpone your greatness, waiting to be accepted? Wanting approval is human, but living to please others is handing over your own worth to them instead of building it within yourself. Stoicism teaches that our dignity should not depend on anyone. Our peace cannot change according to the moods of others. The value of your decisions lies in their virtue, not in the applause they provoke. You can be admired by everyone and still feel empty. Or you can be misunderstood and still move forward with firmness and peace. Try this exercise now. Think about the times you swallowed your opinion, said yes when you wanted to say no, or hid out of fear. Notice how many times you betrayed yourself and how much it cost you. Those who live seeking approval live negotiating with fear. Today it's the boss, tomorrow it's the partner, then it's others. When you realize it, your life has become a stage, beautiful on the outside, empty on the inside. But there is a turning point, and it begins with courage. The courage to choose oneself, not out of vanity, but out of truth. The courage to hold one's own voice, even if it trembles. To follow one's own path, even without applause. Think of a tree in the middle of the forest. It doesn't bend to please, it grows towards the light it feels is its own. The tree doesn't seek applause, it seeks roots. and that's why it flourishes. You too were born to grow, but growing requires courage. It requires letting go of the opinions of others and ceasing to ask permission to be who you are. True admiration comes when you no longer need it, because those who live authentically transmit something rare, a silent strength, and a presence that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. So stop and ask yourself honestly, how many times have you hidden your essence from others? How many opinions have you postponed sharing your truth with? Today, say to yourself, I choose my truth. This phrase is more than a choice. It's the end of fear, doubt, and the desire to fit into small spaces. You no longer bend. Now you grow, sir, with courage, clarity, and wholeness.